At the bottom of page 3, in this orange rectangle, I need to create 3 buttons that are going to eventually become active links. In order to do that, I want to create 3 white rectangles that are identical in size. This is pretty easy to do. What I've done is I've clicked, dragged, and dropped some guides. I'd like you to do the same. And then with your rectangle tool selected, click from one corner to the next, and then just create a rectangle of about 1.283 inches and a height of 0.86. And now go to your swatches panel. Now what you want to do is you want to scroll up until you hit the paper color so that I now have a white rectangle. Now I want to apply some effects to this rectangle. I want to go to Windows and I want to select the Effects panel. That's this one here. When I have the flyout menu, I'm going to click and drag it so that I now have the FX panel here. Click on the FX panel and you get your flyout options. And just like Photoshop, the effects that can be found here are at the bottom on the FX drop-down menu. And the first one I'm going to do is Drop Shadow. So here in Drop Shadow, you can see here I've got opacity set to 75, blending mode multiply, 135-degree angle, and then I've got the size and spread set up here. I'm pretty happy with that. That looks pretty good. As long as you have 3 buttons with the same effects applied, I'll be pretty happy. The next thing I want you to do is select Bevel and Emboss. When you select Bevel and Emboss, you can see that it gives it a sort of dimensionality. And here, keep the default settings, and you can see what's actually happening because I have the preview selected here. When you're happy with Drop Shadow and Bevel and Emboss, click OK. I now want to have 3 exactly the same buttons, and it's very easy to do. I'm going to Control-C to copy this and Control-V to paste it. I'm going to do the same thing to the 3rd item. Now, you really want to take a look at the space between the 2 items to make sure that everything looks lined up so that everything is nice and even. All right, when you have your 3 items lined up, now you're ready to write on the buttons, and each one is going to have a separate link. The font used for these buttons is the same one as the subtitles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control-C on Innovation and Control-V, and I'm going to place Innovation just right here on top of that button. I'm going to make that button fit just like so. I'm going to take the text tool, the type tool, and I'm going to type in Learn More. I also want to make sure that Learn More is centered. So I'm going to go ahead and center that text. Make sure that the type tool is right on the actual button. So if you make sure that the button and the type tool box are the same size, then everything will be centered beautifully. Okay. Once you have that text box perfectly centered, and I might want to bump that down just a wee bit, I'm going to do a Control-C and I'm going to do a Control-V. Now, easily enough, I'm going to click, drag, and drop a guide. And I'm going to take Learn More and place it using that guide, making sure that everything lines up perfectly. And now I'm going to type in my next button. So the next button is Book a Tour, and the last button is Apply Now. And you may have to actually click Enter in order for them to fit together. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 additional boxes, but I'm not going to apply any effects. I'm going to go up here to the Rectangle Frame tool, and I'm going to create 2 small squares. To hold the Shift key, you're going to get a perfect square. So there's one, and I'm going to Control-C and Control-V because I want another one exactly the same. So there it is there, and I'm going to place it. I'm going to place them both side by side. And I've just clicked Shift and held the 2 together so that they can kind of be perfectly spaced one after the other. I'm going to click on the first one, File, Place, and I'm going to select the Facebook logo, and here I'm going to right click, fill frame proportionally, and then I'm going to zoom in a bit to perfect that. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same to this Twitter one. I'm going to go File, Place, and select the Twitter logo, open, fill frame proportionally, and once again I want them to line up, keeping in mind that I'm lining up the interior of the picture. Okay, let's take a look at what this looks like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this in Shift W mode. So make sure you click off and do a Shift W. Now I can see the entire document as it looks without all of those guides. So I'm just going to scroll through using the side arrows. I can notice I have to put in a logo here, so that's missing. I also have to put a turquoise line here, as well as the final logo here. All right, we still have some work to do. The following videos will be to clean up and finish up the interactivity of the document and make sure that we've got everything in place.